Thank you. Good morning. We're doing a nice early live this morning. We're just having a play around with what timings works best. I've just sent everyone out the door a bit late to school and kinder pickup, so we can chat before I record today's podcast. So we've gone live. I say we, it's just me. Every day this week, answering your baby sleep questions across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I got a wonderful update this morning. I've been doing a 2-week package. We started on Monday with a beautiful 6-month-old baby boy. And last night he slept all the way through until 12:40 a.m. He'd been previously having a very hard time in the 10s and had a feed, went back down, fed 3 hours later and back down until 6:45 this morning, and took all of his beautiful naps yesterday. And we are on the up. It's fantastic. I love receiving those messages because it's always on the back of the nights where you feel like, is this ever possible? Will this be, maybe my baby's the exception to the rule. And this just shows he can absolutely do it. So that was my update this morning. But feel free, if you've got baby sleep questions, as always, drop them into the comment section. And once they're there, we can get the ball rolling. I'm just checking. I've also been going to be jumping into Snooze Social. It's been amazing to see so many of you after these lives signing up for Snooze Social, my baby sleep membership, to ask your baby sleep questions. So there's a couple of us in there moderating as sleep consultants, but you also get the support of over, I think it's about 235 of you now from all around the world. Lee says 8.5-month follows your schedule to a T and has to be woken from 2 naps, wakes at 5 a.m, will cry for a little, then go back to sleep. That's fantastic. It's so fun to have a does she need more day sleep? That's always a good problem. I was reading that being like, oh, where's the problem here? I don't think so, because your sleep is really good. I know it can feel, you're welcome to give it a go, but just watch out for the things like early rising or for nap 2 to become problematic. Are you on I'm guessing you might be on the 2 nap. Yeah, you said, sorry, you are on the 2 naps. I probably wouldn't touch it because it's working so well. It's really hard, never wake a sleeping baby except when your sleep is so good and it's working. Very, very good problem to have. And for anyone listening, that little quick cry at 5 a.m. is just no big deal. No big deal. We don't need to fix that. Babies can be very vocal between sleep cycles, fragile time in the morning. No notes there. The emphasis is on that she goes back to sleep. So that's amazing, Elise. I would just leave it. Ashley, I've been trying to do 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. for my 6-month-old. Sometimes he wakes at 5 ready for the day and we resettle, but then he wants to sleep in. Should I wake him? Absolutely. Whenever we are trying to manage, troubleshoot, fix an early rise, you have to cap your morning wake up time. If a baby, let's say you resettle from 5 till 6 a.m. They finally go back down at 10 past 6. You still wake them at 7, because if they then slept 6 a.m., 10 past 6 till 7:45, not only is your whole day thrown out, so you won't achieve your 7 p.m. bedtime, but it doesn't work. It doesn't help your baby's body clock. Instead, they learn, I can wake at 5 because then I get to sleep from 6 till 7:45, if that makes sense. So you have to cap your timing to the point where I have worked with babies that when we are fixing an early rise, they will wake up 5, we will resettle. It does not look like they will go back to sleep, which never bothers me. I always have a plan and a backup plan. And then at 6:51, they go back to sleep, you still wake them at 7. And I know it feels so hard, but tomorrow you'll be so thankful that you did. You will move forward. The protocol will work, but you will be chasing your tail um, if you let them sleep in. Oh no, I sound so harsh. Oh, you accidentally let him sleep until 8:15. Look, that sounds absolutely delightful. We all have these moments. You just got to troubleshoot the day and then start again tomorrow. We all slept in this morning in our house until 7:40. So sometimes it's do as I say, not as I do. But when you've got an early rise, you need to cap your morning wake up time when you're doing the early rising plan and troubleshooting and protocol. Hi Sally. We have a 4-month-old who sleeps 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 a.m. Wow, huge sleep. Usually goes down drowsy but awake and settles herself off to sleep. However, most nights she wakes herself hysterical after the first hour. It may be that when we look across the whole 24-hour picture, 13 hours of overnight sleep, we're asking for too much. If we redistribute it, it may, in fact, give a little bit more sleep pressure to that first wake up for her to treat 7:30 p.m. like actual bedtime rather than wanting to go to sleep. Maybe it feels a bit like bedtime, but also it could be a nap. I think you may just be asking for a little bit too much of overnight sleep. Let's cap the morning wake, give it back to the day, which in turn will give it back to the night, if that makes sense. That's my first thought, just based on what's in that message. Oh, Maddie, yes, sorry, I have seen your DM. Sorry, I find it very tricky to get through all my DMs. I sound like such a cliche. I try my absolute best, and then life gets in the way. So if you haven't heard from me with DMs, definitely there are so many other ways you can book a consult. You can jump into Snooze Social to ask a question where it won't get missed because it's not just me manning the DMs. But Maddie, you've asked. I sent you a DM yesterday for my 3-year-old all of a sudden waking early hours of the night, needing us to lay down with her to fall back to sleep and staying with her. Always been a fantastic sleeper. This can often just become habitualized. Maybe she had a bad dream one night. Maybe there was just something that caused an overnight waking, and that has led to her now asking for you to stay with her. If that's not what you want to do, then I would be resettling in a different way. Equally, if you're happy to lie down with her and it's a quick settle, that's no problem at all. It will very much become a habit, is my guess, particularly at the age of 3. And I remember you saying she hasn't got a day nap, which is great. So my guess is it's probably now habitual. And toddlers are hard because they know exactly what they want, which is their job. They're not doing anything wrong or cheeky or manipulative, although sometimes it can feel like that. We just have to manage. We just have to manage boundaries in a really loving and consistent way. Bub recently has been falling asleep for day naps in a seated position. Would there be any reason for this? Sometimes I work with babies that when we are initially doing sleep training, so we're just teaching sleep for the first time on at bedtime and overnight, they will fall asleep sitting up, and then I get mum or dad to go in and just lie them back down. But I don't think there's probably any reason. Maybe it's a fun new thing. Can they, I don't know how old your baby is, but can they lie themselves back down? If not, I just go in and lie them down. It may be that they were thinking about having a bit of a protest and not going to sleep, and then so sat up for it and then decided, oh, no, actually, you know what? I'm really tired. I will go to sleep. Hey, Sally, my 3.5-month-old refuses to be put down for naps. He escalates so quickly and there's just no way to settle him. Any suggestions? This is a really common, first of all, congratulations, tiny new little baby. How beautiful. One of the things I often find is that if a baby is really escalated, sometimes they are overtired, which is such a tricky thing, particularly at this age. Some babies it can be a very fine line between Oh, they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. Oh, no, they're overtired. We've missed the window. But overtiredness can equal escalation and a very tricky resettle. So I'd be working to a 90-minute wake window. The other thing is that a lot of babies that have a tendency to get overtired and are very easily stimulated and engaged, they need to be in a really firm swaddle so that they don't then, they're so tired, they're trying to sleep, or even trying to be put to sleep by you, but they're still having to fight themselves, their startle reflex, their body, they're just, it's all too much. So I really encourage at this age for babies that are having tricky naps, a really firm swaddle, such as the Miracle blanket swaddle, which is maximum startle suppression. And it will also mean that your baby is more receptive to your settling technique. So it's not that your 3.5-month-old has to magically now self-settle, not at all, but even more receptive to the dummy, to your pick up, put down, to the rocking in your arms, because they don't have to fight themselves. So those are a couple of things I would try: a 90-minute wake window and a Miracle blanket swaddle. I would also just take the pressure off. Maybe you just try for the first nap of the day, and then the rest can be a little bit more less pressure, fully assisted contact naps, and just see how you go just by focusing on the first nap of the day, which is usually the easiest for most babies. Carly over on TikTok has asked, is it too late to move my 13-month to her crib? Not at all. I put 2.5-year-olds back in cribs and cots. So 13-month-old is definitely possible. And in fact, I would say there is no time like the present to get this done, because the longer you wait, the older they are, and the closer they get to maybe thinking about dropping the nap, the harder it is. You can absolutely 10 out of 10 put your 13-month-old into a crib. In fact, this is the green light for you to go and do it. You have to also have realistic expectations, though. We're not working with a 5-month-old baby. 13-month-olds can stand. They, let's say you've been doing something different for the last 10 months of their life. Their habits are more ingrained compared to a much younger baby. They're more vocal too. They might have me saying a few words. So we have to accept that and allow that they're not doing anything wrong. We just have to have realistic expectations that it may look, feel, sound a little bit different compared to if we're moving an 8-month-old baby into the crib. Sonia asks, my 10-month-old keeps waking up at the same time each night. What's the best way to stop this and try to get her to sleep through? Whenever we've got funky overnight wakings, we need to always figure out what could be the root causes before we have a look at, could this be habitual, which it could be. So I want to know where your nap timings are. I'd be having 2 naps at 10 months of age, sometimes to a medium. Sometimes we'll move to a short long if nap 2 was being jeopardized. 3 milk feedings, 3 meals of solids, and self-settling at bedtime. Then let's have a look at, often when that's happening at the same time each night, it can be that it's now a habit. So the little internal body clock is now wired to, at this time between this sleep cycle, I now wake and get X, Y, and Z. So have a look at what the X, Y, and Z is. It may be that you need to do a little bit of sleep training once you've got your schedule in place, your feeds, et cetera, and you can be confident that waking is not because of hunger, environment, undertired, overtired, all the things that run through our minds as parents. Then you need to have a consistent sleep training technique and see it through. And that pattern interrupt is what the next night, the wake may still happen, but you're going to turn up and do exactly the same thing that you did the night before. And your little one's going to say, oh, okay, nothing exciting here. This is becoming less and less worth my time waking up. And so it becomes, it weans itself out. They go back to sleep. You sleep train it out. Taylor. Hi, Sally. Hi. Oh, the baby that likes to sit up is 14 months old, lies down, yes, but when I go in, gets super unsettled, definitely feels like she has FOMO and doesn't want to sleep. Oh yeah, she's fighting the good fight. She's going to hold on to being awake for as long as possible to the point where she sits up. I I suspect the novelty will wear off, that this will be a fun new trick at the moment, and she will relax into it. So less is more is nearly always the approach, particularly with older babies. Just give me 1 second. I am going to get something to do with my hands because I realize I always touch my hair on my face. Hang on. We are very big on fidget toys in my house. So luckily I have a whole bucket that is ready at my disposal. Just at the beginning, oh, sorry, there's another question. What rough nap times should I do for his 3-day naps normally? Oh, Ashley, let me just go back, find out how. Oh, 6 months. So I would do a 6 months, 6 months. I would do a 9:30 till 10:15 nap 1, a 12:45 till 2:15 nap 2, and a 4:45 till 5:15 nap 3, and a 7:15 bed. Anna, almost 10-month-old, was on 2 naps now back to 3. I would definitely be looking at staying on 2 naps at 10 months old. The only time when I would do 3 is if I need to, like, if sleep is all over the shop and I need to take the pressure off getting long naps in, get some great feeds in, just recalibrate the whole 24 hours. I may put a third very strategic nap back in, but it's probably only for a day or so, just while we fix everything. But it's very tricky to keep a 10-month-old on 3 naps. Tamsin asked, thoughts on the Ferber method? A friend has given me a manual on it for my 4-month-old. Not sure it's for me. Ferber method, for anyone that doesn't know, is a very traditional sleep training technique where it's essentially controlled crying. You go in at increasing intervals, 2, 4, 6, 8, 6, 8, 10, 12, something along those lines. I personally am very pro Ferber. I often use a modified Ferber. Do I use other things? Absolutely. Even yesterday, I was walking through a family about we were going to use an in-room approach for 2 weeks to wean her presence out, because we were moving away from feeding to sleep and co-sleeping, which are two very, very heavily ingrained sleep associations. Ferber can be incredibly effective. It's evidence-based, in terms of control crying is evidence-based, and it's appropriate from 4 months of age. Do you have to do it? No. So if you are feeling like it's not for me, you don't have to do it, but you equally don't have to be scared of it. I think there is so much fear-mongering online about any kind of cry-based technique. We spoke on yesterday's live a lot about crying, and it's not something that I shy away from as a sleep consultant. It can be incredibly effective. And sometimes I read the comment sections of the algorithm sends me a lot of baby sleep content. And I read the comment sections, when someone's asking for help, and the amount of people saying, I tried everything and then I tried Ferber and it saved my life. It absolutely has a place in the place of baby sleep and sleep training, definitely. But do you have to do it? No. He always refuses a swaddle and has begun enrolling as well. I track his wake windows on the Huckleberry app. Do you recommend that? A couple of things. A baby has been swaddled essentially in utero. It's not that they don't want the swaddle. I've never met a baby that doesn't actually want to be asleep. What I often find is that we've missed the window and you're a little bit too far gone in terms of overtiredness, and then the swaddle is just sort of the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I would be trying to do everything a little bit earlier. If you want to use the Huckleberry app, go for it. I think they're all about finding the sweet spot. But it may be that the sweet spot that they're recommending is not quite right. The rolling as well in something like a miracle blanket. I mean, do whatever feels right and safe for you and your baby, of course. The miracle blanket, it's for a 3.5-month-old to then be rolling in their sleep in a miracle blanket is going to be incredibly difficult. I'm never going to say it's not possible, but I am yet to experience that. But take from this what you will. These are just suggestions for you to try. Tamsin says, I just wish there wasn't so much shame and controversy around it. Oh, Tamsin, you and me both. It's like my biggest bugbear, and sleep training in general just needs the biggest PR makeover and overhaul. And while there are so many great things to come from social media, things like shame and guilt about baby sleep is just wild to me. And the comments, I thought I should do a real, celebrities reading mean tweets. I thought I could do, not that I'm a celebrity, but a sleep consultant reading the mean comments that I get, because it is just out of this world and not backed by evidence. And what it does is, as someone so beautifully articulately, that wasn't very articulate, put it in my DMs this week, is it glorifies the parts of motherhood that are breaking you. And it doesn't leave you with options. It doesn't leave when there are evidence-based options out there. So you will find no shame or controversy here if you use Ferber. I work with families that tell me that they've used True Cry It Out and Extinction. You'll find no judgment or shame from me. One of the places I often go to when I am needing a refresher on the evidence, and to even just for me to hear another voice of reason, is on social media, That Sleep Doc. Oh, I think he's That Sleep Doc or The Sleep Doc. He's a pediatric neurologist and sleep specialist in America, and he talks about how there is no debate. Sleep training, when done, it can be safe and effective when done appropriately. The evidence just does not show to harm or attachment issues. I was a registered pediatric nurse for a long time, and so I follow a lot of the research from the Murdoch Children's Research Institute here in Melbourne. And they have long-term studies about attachment using cry-based techniques, and it just doesn't show that. But what the social media plays on our emotions and vulnerabilities as a mother, because we are all trying to do our absolute best, and even just a sliver of a thought that we could affect our babies negatively is enough to stop us in our tracks, understandably. And I feel like so much content plays on that, but doesn't actually help or support. So if you're out there and you're doing Ferber, you think about doing Ferber, you'll find no judgment or shame from me at all. Hi, Sally. My 9-month-old has just dropped to 2 naps, and some nights we get false starts. Is this overtired? Whenever we make a nap drop, and Tuesday's episode of my Nap Trapped podcast was about troubleshooting nap transitions. This is really common. Often when we make a change, nights can take a hit, and there is always a little bit of overtiredness that comes into the mix, just because we're stretching a wake window a little bit, we're stretching a baby's threshold a little bit. If you have done the nap drop at the right time, those blips you just ride out. You don't fix, because it's just sleep pressure redistributing. And if you go in really heavy-handed to try and fix, and I have been so tempted over the years to fix for families, and really we just need to let it iron out. So that is a really normal thing to experience when we do a nap drop of any age and stage. And we go into more detail about that on this week's Tuesday episode of Nap Trapped, my baby sleep podcast. Taylor. Hi, Sally. I'm just wondering what to do and how to troubleshoot the rest of the evening and bedtime when my baby fully refuses the 5 p.m. nap. Taylor, can you please just remind me how old your baby is? But I'm going to use a scenario that I see often because essentially our hands can be tied. So let's say your baby's 8 months old and they are on a 9:30 till 10:15, 12:45 till 2:15, and then you're trying to get a 5:15 till 5:30 nap in. And come 5:30, they are outright refusing that nap. That absolutely happens, at which point your hands are tied and you need to skedaddle through the bedtime routine, through quick dinner, almost 7.5 months. Okay. So same thing. So you're asking for a 5 till 5:30 nap. You've still got 30 minutes to try. So even if they fall asleep from 5:20 till 5:30, I'll take it and then use a 2-hour wake window to bed. But if they have it's a no-go, then into bed by 6:15 to try and minimize overtiredness, and know that you might hear from them a little bit more overnight. You know that there's some overtiredness in play, but there's not much you can do about it. So I would throw everything. Just make sure, Taylor, as well, that 30-minute, that 5 p.m. cat nap, are you starting it at 5? Or are you starting it earlier to try and get it to start at 5? We start it at 5 and throw everything at it. Bounce on the football, rock, hold, pat, shush, whatever it is. It does not have to be an in-cot nap. And then you have your ultimate backup plan of the 6:15 into bed if it all just goes south. Hi, Sally. My 8-month-old is waking at 2 to 3 a.m. overnight for 1.5 to 2 hours and have tried everything to get her back to sleep, but nothing has worked. What should I do? Often so I say this always assuming that that schedule's right, feeds are right, that we've eliminated the root causes of overnight wakings. And I'll bang on about that. I probably just sound so boring saying it over and over and over and over, but no amount of technique is going to fix something if there's a fundamental something wobbly with the schedule or feeds or the temperature. Do they need a different tog rating of their sleeping bag, particularly if this is a stubborn 2 to 3 a.m. waking? But then let's have a look at what is happening at 2 to 3 a.m. If you are trying to get her back to sleep, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you were actively trying to put her back to sleep. Maybe you're trying to rock her all the way back to sleep and then transfer her. This is where it's often unproductive, particularly at this age. So I would actually go in with more of a very low stimulation technique, something very boring but reassuring, something like Ferber, modified Ferber, if that feels right for you, to just say, hey, I see you, you're okay, and it's the middle of the night, night, and then back out. And you do that for the wake up, because hands-on things can just it can prolong the wake up, even though you're trying your absolute best to get her back to sleep. It's not so much about that. It's about creating the pattern of reassurance while signaling it's still nighttime. Because the truth is, we can't make a baby go to sleep. We can't make a baby stay asleep. All you can do is create the consistent and appropriate opportunity to do so. Jen, yes, that is correct. And feed too. Yes. Yes. So I would look at pulling all of that. And it's really counterintuitive for us as parents, because we want to fix, we want to console. And yes, absolutely, Jen, if she's content in the cot, just leave her. Absolutely. And I think I often say to parents, would you hear this if you didn't have a monitor? If she's just babbling, blowing raspberries, absolutely just leave her to it. No problem. Any kind of intervention or technique or assistance starts from when a baby starts to escalate. Not just when they're happy hanging out. Sorry, I just saw a whole lot of messages come through on TikTok. Demi, I'm not sure what might be going on. It's tricky to know because, and I know we've spoken and you've got a plan. I'm just not sure what might be going on, whether or not you need to rule out any kind of medical thing, but also maybe might be the sort of thing where we need to do a 2-week package so I can follow along. I'm not sure where you're up to or what's happening, and whether or not the standing and rocking is just her preference versus laying down or you doing some sleep training. It's really tricky. I get it. But I have no doubt that she's capable of this, and I know how hard you've been working on this as well. It's me, M. Jane, 6.5-month-old with habitual early rise that we are working on. The problem is that he keeps doing the early morning poos at 5:30 a.m., finding it very hard to get him to fall back to sleep until 6:30, 7 a.m. Bedtime, 7:31, feed overnight around midnight, and 2.5-hour wake windows during the day with 2.5 hours of naps during the day. So at 6.5 months old, I'd be doing a 9:30 till 10:15, a 12:45 till 2:15, and a 4:45 till 5:15, and then only using a 2-hour wake window until bed. So bedtime's going to be at 7:15, just to minimize the chance that the annoying thing about overtiredness is that it can cause early rising, even though you would think if you are so tired, could you just have a huge, big sleep? The other thing is I want to know where your milk feeds and solids at this age are placed. I want to know the room temperature, if there's air conditioning, if there's heating, what is your little one wearing, and what is the tog rating of the sleeping bag. And then I also want to know what happens from a parental perspective at 5 to 5:30. Are you When you say I'm finding it very hard to get him to fall back to sleep until 6:37, what are you doing, and can you do less of that and merely just delay getting up until 7? Now, in terms of the poo, sometimes you just need to do the world's quickest ninja-like change and back out until 7. Equally, sometimes babies poo in the night and we don't even know. Like my babies have been such great sleepers that when I've gone in the morning, I think, oh my goodness, did that happen in the last 10 minutes or did it happen in the last 10 hours? You can always just slather a lot of nappy cream on their bottom as well, just in case you're not sure when it's happening, just to help protect their skin from the poo in case it happened earlier in the night and you didn't and you weren't aware. But I want to know, usually less is more when we're fixing an early rise. Is bedtime when they go in the cot or when we want them to be asleep by? Same for naps. Great question. On my schedules, at least, the start of the nap or the bedtime is into cot time. So let's say, using that 6-month-old example, 9:30 till 10:15 nap 1, we're into the cot at 9:30, not at 9:15 to be asleep by 9:30. Equally, 7:15 is into cot to either self-settle, or if you're fully assisting things, 9:30 is when, okay, you start rocking. And we absorb the sleep onset time into the nap time. Yes, I'd love to tap into your nurse background. Bailey's 8 months old and loving solids, but I'm noticing breastfeeds aren't as enthusiastic often. It's really common for babies that love solids, my own included, to want to choose that over a breast or a bottle feed. So on my schedules, we create balance. So, for example, at 8 months, if you're on 3 naps, I would have you on 4 hourly breastfeeds, and I would have your solids placed where there's still enough time for appetite for both. In saying that, sometimes we do need to pull back just a little bit in order to get the milk feed back in the mix, because I absolutely work with some babies who are just so happy. They would just choose to self-wean. They just want every meal at the family table under the sun. And so we need to pull back a little bit to entice them back to the breast or the bottle, find that balance. It's always a bit of trial and error as well. But on my schedules, it's a very safe bet in terms of there should be appetite enough for both breast and solids. And then we can play around with the volume of solids. My 10-month-old has returned to only contact napping. If I put him down, he freaks and nap is over. This is common if contact napping has come back into the mix, and it often has to happen after sickness, travel, that sort of thing. And a baby, you are your baby's most favorite person in the whole wide world. A lot of babies will choose that over going back to do an independent cot nap. The problem is that if that's not sustainable for you, that you're contact napping a 10-month-old twice a day and having a hard time having a moment to yourself, or maybe they're getting heavy, or maybe you just don't want to do that and you want to get back to independent sleep. The place always to start is making sure that the self-settling skill is locked in, and if not, we need a refresher at bedtime and overnight to remaster the skill. Then for a 10-month-old, I would be working on the first nap, assuming they're on 2 naps. I'd be working on the first nap of the day when sleep pressure is on your side, and then fully assist nap 2. And so let's say on a 10-month schedule, we're aiming for a 9:30 till 10:15 nap. I'm just thinking, would I do nap 1 or nap 2? Sometimes you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I would pop down at 9:30, maybe have a go for 20 minutes on day 1, no diet, rescue the rest of the nap, and keep trying that for a few days. Equally, if you're happy to do the first nap out on the go and you want to time it to be at swimming lessons or something and in the car, then nap 2 is the one that you would do, because you've got full 2 hours, 1:15 till 3:15. And I don't mind if a baby doesn't fall asleep until 2:45. It's about offering the appropriate opportunity to flex that muscle and entice that skill back out. But you need to have a bit of a plan. On yesterday's live, one of the main topics that kept coming up was nap training, and it would take a little bit of nap training, is my guess, Claire. But if they were able to do it before, then they can absolutely do it again. They're just going to tell you about it, which is their prerogative. My 2-year-old wakes up from her nap really emotional, crying, and lasts for 2 hours. Any advice? Oh, poor little thing. One of mine, when they were a toddler, often woke up very, very emotional and grumpy. Didn't cry hysterically for 2 hours. But they were just groggy and crabby, and definitely woke up crying. And it was a bit of a phase, and they just wrote it out. So I don't have any specific advice. It could just be that they do not want to be awake. Sometimes also it's temperament too. Some babies are just bigger feelers than others. Baby doesn't nap longer than 30 minutes for her second nap. Should keep trying to resettle her. So yes, the order of assistance and the plan, I guess, for a lot of nap work is that you fully assist maybe the whole nap. So you sort of take the pressure off, retrain the brain to say, okay, this is how long I want you to be asleep for. So maybe you do the whole nap in your arms, or maybe you do the whole nap in the pram on the go, and make sure you're still walking at the 30-minute mark, pounding the pavement. And you just do that for a couple of days. And then you go back to popping baby down to self-settle for the first sleep cycle of the nap. And then you rescue and fully assist the second And then you need to usually do some more active nap training, which once you know, okay, I know you've got this great skill of self-settling at the beginning of the nap, and I know that your body clock knows, I know that you know that I know that you know that this is meant to be a longer nap. So you then start doing some nap training and working to cot time or crib hour, whatever you want to call it, and you sleep train the remainder of the nap. And at that point, it just usually takes a couple of days. It's often the final piece of the puzzle, but you need to make sure that your schedule is encouraging a long enough nap. There is a difference between being tired enough to fall asleep and tired enough to stay asleep. And we need to make sure that they've got a nice full tummy, that they're not snack feeding or falling asleep on a feed, in which case they may genuinely be hungry. Are they truly self-settling for the nap? And then the sleep environment as well. We want it dark, dark for babies that are struggling with catnapping. I want to make sure they're warm enough. Have they had time down on the mat? They need to exert some energy. We need them to exercise, essentially. I always sleep better after a gym session. So we need them to we need to have met all of those needs so that then we know the stage is set for a longer sleep cycle. Justine, any advice for my 4-month-old for naps? Will only contact nap and will scream, cry in bassinet, but she sleeps great overnight in bassinet and it's easy to get her down for bed. So what you're experiencing is extremely common, particularly at this age, and a very good example of how the night brain and the nap brain are two different things. So it's actually less about the bassinet. It's not that she feels unsafe or it's uncomfortable, because you can see how beautifully she sleeps in it at bedtime and overnight. This is about offering the opportunity to sleep in it during the day, and I would just focus on the first nap of the day at this age. And she doesn't even have to she doesn't have to self-settle. I would just be looking to fully assist her. I was talking about this just a little bit earlier about a 3.5-month-old baby who is experiencing something differently. I would make sure she's in a really nice, firm swaddle, so she doesn't have to sort of fight herself as well as fight sleep. So I would pop her in a miracle blanket swaddle if you haven't got one already, and that can make a baby so much more receptive to all of these amazing techniques that you're trying to use to help her to grow accustomed to the bassinet. Uh, the other thing, if you're looking for example schedules, different settling techniques, it's all in my 3 to 4 month sleep course. There were lots of people on the live, I think on Wednesday, who have the course and were saying how useful it's been, particularly as first-time mums, to feel equipped with different techniques to try, see what's right for your baby's temperament, how to set up the environment, some example schedules, and just have a resource to go back to. Monique asks, hello, how do you keep things consistent at home when my 10-month-old is going to childcare and obviously more stimulated, i.e. nap one is likely to be around 10 a.m. as opposed to 9:30, 9:45. She woke at 6 a.m. So childcare always throws a spanner in the works, and both of mine went to childcare. Yes, it throws a spanner in the works, but you can hold steady with your sleep expectations. In fact, you kind of need to at home, because inevitably they have short naps at childcare. They're so stimulated. It's a huge day. It's fun. It's social. And so there's always exhaustion the next day. So I'm always encouraging families to lay low the day after childcare, or the days in between, to recoup and regroup on sleep. So I would be asking if childcare can work to 9:30. I have a podcast episode for anyone listening about the power of the 9:30 nap, and we talk about the childcare scenario of where you're gonna most likely end up with 2 naps, but on your home days, you just hold steady. You hold steady with your consistent timings, your consistent expectations, independent sleep. So even to the point where both of mine outstanding independent sleepers, surprise, surprise, uh, that got patted every day to sleep at childcare. That didn't come home with them, in the sense that I still put them down to self-settle, and that was no problem. And even though they took short naps at childcare, I still always encouraged the long naps at home. We stuck to the schedule at home. So see if you can get them to do roughly the same start time of the nap, particularly that first nap of the day. All you can do is try, and then but you double down at home. You just write it out. So if she woke at 6 a.m., you continue to delay getting up at 7 a.m. 7 a.m. remains the uptime, whether it's a childcare day or not, unless you obviously have to be out the door. But for the most part, you just rinse and repeat. Keep going. Caitlin says, my 6-month-old is waking 3 times a night. Longest stretch now being 4 hours, used to get up to 7 hours. You may still be experiencing the fallout from the 4-month sleep regression, because if they used to be able to do 7 hours, then they're absolutely still capable of that. Something has gone a bit skew if, and chances are at this age, it may have been the 4-month sleep regression that just, it lingers because it's a permanent sleep cycle change. Not to imply that the issue that you're experiencing is permanent, not at all. I'm working with a 6-month-old baby right now on a 2-week package, and we've already gone from 3 overnight feeds, and was it last night or the night before, he dropped down to 1. So it's definitely all possible, and this is a fantastic age, absolute sweet spot to do some sleep training and make some change. So first of all, we need to figure out, is there another cause of the overnight wakings? Is it to do with scheduling? Is it to do with environment? Is it to do with calories? Then we have a look at bedtime. She got the 7 hours after the regression back, but now back to 4. Okay. So then this is a great example of sometimes how habits just restart. A baby has a waking, and we may treat it a little bit differently. Maybe a feed crept back in. Maybe we rock, hold, pat, when usually we know they can link the sleep cycle. And then that just sort of becomes habitualized and hardwired into a baby's internal body clock to say, I now wake at these times to get X, Y, and Z. Again, none of which is a problem unless it's unsustainable. So we have a look at what the day schedule is, the calories, everything, and then we have a look at what's happening overnight. So you might, if it's feed related and we're having 3 feeds, I'd say we're going to drop to 2 straight off the bat, 4-hourly feeds. Everything else in between that becomes a resettle. But you also need to start it at bedtime. The resettling technique needs to match what you're doing at bedtime so that there's a consistent pattern the whole way through. Sleep training, which is made out to be such a dirty word on social media, is teaching your baby to self-settle, so putting themselves to sleep and then making that transition from awake to asleep on their own. And the reason why it becomes very important for a lot of families is that the way that your baby goes to sleep fast becomes the way they look to be resettled overnight multiple times. So if we know that they've got this great skill of self-settling at bedtime, we can hold steady with that expectation at the end of sleep cycles, or when we're making change and looking to drop from 3 wake-ups to 2 wake-ups to 1 wake-up to none, if that makes sense. And it's a legitimate need for a lot of babies, and it is a teachable skill. Self-settling. It's one of the things I see, drives me absolutely bonkers on social media, that we're not talking about self-settling or like self-soothing in terms of tantrum regulation and those sorts of big feelings. We're talking about the skill of falling asleep. And it is absolutely possible. And there is something called, and I'm going to butcher it because I wasn't, what is it? Childhood behavioral insomnia, sleep onset association subtype. And you can absolutely look it up. There's research articles on it. And it's a really long way of saying babies develop strong, not all babies, but a lot of babies develop really strong sleep associations and habits. They want to be rocked, fed, bounced, patted, Irish jigged to sleep. End of the sleep cycle, they are looking for that to be repeated. And that is what so many of the families that I work with experience. And that is where sleep training absolutely has a role to play. Erin, great question. 13-month-old on 2 naps. First nap 1.5 hours at 10:30, 11, 40 minutes at 3 to 4. It keeps pushing out bedtime 8:30. Yes. Should I cap the first nap so I can do an earlier second nap? Yes. You cap the first nap to not only protect, because what you may find that if let's say you keep going for the next couple of weeks or months, that second nap gets refused even though your baby may not yet be ready for one nap officially. But because they've maxed out in their first nap, they don't have anything left in the tank for nap 2. But what you're experiencing is that bedtime gets later and later and later because of the big sleeps during the day. So this is a great example of where I often work to what I call the transitional schedule, and we have a podcast episode all about it as well, to help not only hold on to that second nap, but I actually like that second nap to be the longer one so that a baby goes into the night well rested. But not only that, when you make the nap drop from 2 to 1 naps, if you've had a 3 p.m. nap, say on your schedule, and then we drop it and we need the nap to start at 11:30, that their little body clock has to work really hard harder because they're used to something at 3:00 versus 11:30. So where I like to structure that second nap is at 1:00 and then have the short nap whittle down from 30 minutes to 15 minutes to 10 minutes to no minutes. And then you simply bring this lovely long, well-established afternoon nap down to 11:30 from 1:00, and the body doesn't have to work so hard, if that makes sense. So the transitional schedule is a 7 p.m. bed. Rani asked, do you see an issue in thumb sucking, particularly after ditching the dummy? So many comments online, like, if I see thumb sucking, I'd give the dummy right back. Can't take away. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have the opposite. I am, and keep in mind, I'm not a dentist or an orthodontist. I'm so pro thumb and finger sucking. I think it is the secret sauce to baby sleep. And I say this now as a mother, I have a thumb sucker. And I even spoke to a pediatrician and said, do I need to get rid of it now? My daughter's 6. And she was like, no, you're so fine. Do not pick that. You don't need to. So fine. So take from that what you will. But I think if anything, it's more natural than a dummy. I sucked these 2 fingers until grade 3. I turned out all right. I think both of mine were thumb suckers. My son actually stopped at about 6 months. I don't know what or why that happened, and it was devastating for me because I just think it's the cutest thing. But no, I am pro finger and thumb sucking, and I just believe we'll just cross that bridge. We'll just cross that bridge later. But any dentist listening might have a different opinion. I just say that as a sleep consultant, as a mother. 15-month-old didn't cope with 1 nap past 2 days. Should I go back to 2? Yes. And I would go back, Francesca, I would go back to the transitional schedule that I was just talking about for a different family, and I would use that. And if you missed it, go and have a listen to the podcast episode. So my podcast is called Nap Trapped, and we have a very recent episode on the 2 to 1 nap transition, and that will go into great detail about the scheduling involved, the transitional schedule. Great. You are excellent. Yeah. And we've actually just done a follow-up episode on Tuesday that with some troubleshooting, because a lot of people said, what do we do if this happens? I'm now experiencing this. So we do a little bit of a follow-up about troubleshooting nap transitions. So definitely have a listen to that as well after the 2 to 1 nap drop. Vlada, what time should a 12-week-old baby go to sleep? Currently around 9. Should I transition to earlier? Congratulations. 12-week-old baby's so tiny and cute. You can start to transition earlier. I remember I always tried in my own house and then realized when I look back that they treated 7 o'clock as a nap. And then I was having to resettle and be like, this is like clockwork. And they just needed a little bit of a later bed. They needed that last nap. I think just have a play around with shifting it earlier. It can be tricky at this age. So do it in a low pressure way. Is my baby experiencing the regressions? She's 16 weeks but persistent on feeding at night, although she gets calories during the day. A 16-week-old baby can absolutely and most likely should be feeding throughout the night. They don't need to feed 1 to 2 hourly if they're otherwise healthy and feeding well during the day, but they can. I would never be looking to actively drop feeds overnight for a 16-week-old baby. Is it common for babies to have early morning wakings 50% of the time if you follow the same schedule every day? 9-month-old, 7 a.m., up, 9:30 till 11, 1 till 2, 2 till 3:30, 7 p.m. bed. Lots of babies want, what time are we calling early mornings? This is like 5:30. Lots of babies do want to start their day. So having a look at, I want to know about the bottles, and I think maybe you might be in Snooze Social. Just have I want to know about bottle time, breastfeeds, bottle timings, volumes, time at the breast. We'd always need to rule out what are the other causes of those early wake ups. But if they can do it the other 50% of the time, then it may just be a matter of time and letting it iron out. KT, got advice from you yesterday. My 9-month-old is dropping her third nap today. How long should her 2 naps be? We move straight into a 9:30 till 11 and a 2 till 3:30 schedule on 2 naps at 9 months and a 7 p.m. bed. And just keep in mind on my scheduling, at least, when we move from 4 naps to 3 naps to 2 naps, we go from 4 milk feeds to 3 milk feeds. So, which I also have a podcast episode about how to manage milk feeds with the 3 to 2 nap drop. Sally, it's hot. Are we running the AC or what tog for like 24 plus degrees? 24 plus degrees is probably sitting more like a 1 tog, but have you got big fluctuations? Sometimes the tricky thing is that you can have a hot bedtime and then it drops 10 degrees by 3 a.m. and then baby's waking up cold. So it's up to you about whether or not you run the air conditioning. Some families just want to run it in the lead up to bedtime to take the edge off and cool it down as it then cools down overnight organically. You may also be more like me that loves a temperature controlled room to be very set and forget. And I am definitely known to run the air conditioning and or the heater on all night so that I know that they're dressed at bedtime appropriately also for the early hours of the morning. Yeah, Katie, I think you'll find the podcast really helpful for this transitional stage that you're in. The other really good thing is if you do have big fluctuating temperatures and baby's going to bed and ending up sweaty and then it cools right down, is having a look at a merino wool sleeping bag. There are a few different brands that I recommend. For my families in the Northern Hemisphere, Woolino is one of my family's all-time favorite brands. And then in the Southern Hemisphere, and at least in Australia and New Zealand, Wool Babe does really good ones. There are lots of different ones, but those are sort of my go-to brands. And they often don't have tog ratings. They just say they're incredibly adaptable and breathable. There's some sort of magic in the wool, and they will have, let's say, 17 to 24 degrees or 19 to 28 degrees or something like that. And then, you can dress accordingly underneath. But it is also still always about the layers underneath. I'm going to probably do about 20 more minutes because then I have to log off and then I'm going to get ready. We're recording the pod today. Sarah, hi Sally, can you answer why a 4.5 near 5-month-old would only take 10 to 15 minutes to self-settle at lunch nap, but can take up to an hour at bedtime, sometimes ending up needing to be patted to sleep? It could be a sleep pressure thing. Uh, it could be that we just need to tweak the schedule to build a little bit more sleep drive for bedtime. I would need to know more. If she's happy, though, he or she, if baby's happy, even at bedtime, you can leave them to it, but it may be that we just need a bit of a schedule rejig to help see if we can give some sleep pressure back to bedtime. But amazing self-settling. Well done. Katie, also on the 3 to 2 nap drop, and he seems overtired by 9 a.m. He gets fussy and vocal. 8-month-old, get outside. Absolutely. Distraction, distraction, distraction. My naps, well, and again, like this is just how I do things. But my naps are starting at 9:30 a.m. Any earlier, and we can get some early rising. So, yes, I saw that you booked a consult, Katie. I can't wait to chat. We'll make a plan. I'll be able to read through your form and we'll go over all of these things. But to answer your question quickly here, yes, get outside and go and pat the dog or check the letterbox, do something, and get to 9:30. Yeah, I can't wait. It'll be great. I can't wait to chat. I love consults because I get all the context, but also I get to meet you. We get to chat. I get to meet babies on the calls, and I get to support you in it and coach you through it. We normalize all the things that you're experiencing. And then even yesterday, I got an email from someone I did a consult with 2 weeks ago who baby was not letting mum put her to bed and was needing to be lots of hands-on assistance, being rocked by mum, insisting to be sitting in the chair with mum. Dad was able to just ask her to lie down and she'd do it, but it was happening multiple times overnight. We regrouped and I got an email saying she's now sleeping through the night and even mum can put her to bed. So it's amazing for me to then hear how things go on the other side. Even yesterday while we were on the live, a beautiful family in the UK that I did a 2-week package with for some very stubborn early rising. Like this was tricky. This took time. And this family was so amazing and trusted the process and trusted me. And she jumped on the live yesterday to write that he, after months and months and months of chronic early rising, is now sleeping a minimum of 11 and a half hours. And it was 6:47 a.m. in the UK when she jumped on and he was still asleep. Katie, you like the data. I like how you say you micromanage it all and take away the thinking from us. Absolutely. That's my job. I've been doing this for 8 years. I'm also a mother of 2. So I get it from the sleep consultant hat, so to speak, but also the emotional flexibility needing like the real life feelings about baby sleep. And I know that the families that I've worked with, they've done all the thinking. They've done all the trying and it still hasn't worked. So my job is to come in with a fresh pair of eyes and be so clear and simple in the plan and explain the why so it makes sense and to make it sustainable. We can stagger the approach. We don't have to rip any band-aids. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's about what is your goal? Here is how we are going to meet that. Beth, Sally, when do we drop to 1 nap? 11-month-old is fighting nap 1, 30 minutes like a mofo. Lol. I love the sassy ones. I love the spicy babies. When you start your own business, they always say, find your target market. I swear these babies have found me. I work with babies that like to give me a good run for my money. I had one family on a call once describe, and I was like, what's their temperament like? Whose baby? Are they sassy? Are they? And they said, I guess you could say animated. And I was like, that is a very good description. Beth, I want to know what the timing of your first nap. Sometimes if they're still really struggling, because I definitely have never, ever done it at 11 months old. I'll just start with that. But sometimes when They are refusing the first 30-minute nap. We need to actually get them up a little bit earlier in the day for the greater good of the long-term plan. So maybe instead of the 7 a.m. up, we do a 6:30 a.m. up, and we're aiming for a 10:15 till 10:30 nap, for example. But also, what are we trying? As in, are we asking for a self-settling nap? Are we doing fully assisted? How does it look? And but I would be holding on to that nap for until 14 months if you can. 7-month-old needs a dream feed, then wakes 3 to 4 a.m., then 6 a.m., then up at 7:30 a.m. I am going to say your 7-month-old does not need a dream feed. In fact, the average 7-month-old can sleep all night long without a feed. Do they have to? Absolutely not. And we don't need to, I would never go cold turkey. But what I suspect, but your dream feed's not doing what it's meant to do if you're getting a wake up still at 3 and then at 6. So the point of the dream feed is that you get a really long stretch feed and then back down until the morning, in theory. So your dream feed is not doing that. Oh gosh, I hope I don't sound too harsh. But at this age, it becomes a little bit more clear cut for me compared to, let's say, a 4.5-month-old. So I would actually drop the dream feed. Make sure your day feeds are locked in. I would be doing 4-hourly feeds on a 3-nap schedule. Big, beautiful, full, complete feeds, breast or bottle, doesn't matter. And then I would do the first feed at the first waking after 11 p.m., resettle anything before 11 p.m., feed after 11, full feed, full investment feed, 4 hours after that, but back down and then start your day. But I don't think they need a dream feed. It can be the dream feed can be one of those things that becomes a crutch for parents as time goes on because it gives a sense of control and it's the status quo. I know that we give this at this time and we get sleep until this time, and it can feel a bit intimidating. What happens if we take this away? What's going to happen? Are they going to wake at 9? Are they going to wake at 10? How do I resettle, et cetera, et cetera? You just need a plan. But if you take the confidence knowing that, for example, if we did a 2-week package, I 99% would be sure that your baby would be then going all night without a feed by the end. But we would not start there. We would start with 2, and then chances are baby will drop 1 organically, and then you've got 1 that's left in the 2 or 3 AMZs, which baby will either start to drop or you can drop it for them. What was the podcast you mentioned yesterday to listen to about my 6-month-old waking at 6 a.m.? Luckily, you should ask, and I'm wearing the merch. Nap Trapped is the name of the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, and we have a 2-part series on early rising. If a 9-month-old can self-settle, will it make it easier for them to go down for a nap with another caregiver, grandma? Absolutely. Because they understand the assignment. They have the skills. Grandma can know they've got the skills. You don't really need to add anything into the mix. The thing I would just make sure is that you still work to the schedule and you still have a similar environment. We're wanting really dark. I'm reading that they're going to grandma's house. But if it's grandma's coming over to do it, then absolutely grandma just needs to go with the plan. No problem. No problem. The podcast has been so great for me. I send it to people all the time, even in my summaries, because it just provides so much more context and chat between 2 sleep consultants that, I got to tell grandma. Yeah, it's all well and good for me to say that. But the podcast is so useful. We go so in depth and just have a good old chat about everything and make sure that we really try to make sure that we explain why we recommend these things so it doesn't just feel like arbitrary baby sleep advice from 2 randoms in your ears. 14-month-old should be on 1 or 2 naps. It really depends at this age, but ideally if you can be on 2 naps, the longer, the better. I will transition a 14-month-old once we have exhausted absolutely all options. So I would much rather do it 15 and a half to 18 months versus 13, 14. Wake windows for 7-month-olds, still doing 2 to 2.5 hours. Can do 7-hour stretches overnight. What have I got? I can never I struggle with, like, a little bit of number dyslexia at times. So what have I got? A 9:30 till 10:15, 10:15, 11:15, 12:15. That's a 2.5 hour wake window. Yep, so 9:30 till 10:15, 12:45 till 2:15, and then a 5 till 5:30 nap. The reason I will then use a 2-hour wake window until bed is because that last 30-minute nap is not a full sleep cycle. So we don't need a full-blown wake window, if that makes sense. And people always say when they see my example schedules on social media, my baby would never go down after only 2 hours, but there is method behind the madness of a short afternoon nap does not need a full-blown sleep cycle because you will get overtiredness. Well, keep in mind the babies that I work with have sleep issues, so we're fixing a sleep problem. 3.5-year-old and 8-month-old have to be in the same room. Baby's waking anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. I think that's a pretty age-appropriate time maybe for the 3.5-year-old as well. Get them up, and you might find that 3.5-year-old continues to sleep a little bit longer. If this is working for you, it's working for you, this sort of range of 6:30 to 7:30. I'll use this just as a sideways thought bubble, but I like families to have pretty much a set uptime rather than fluctuating 6:30 to 7:30 because as Katie mentioned before, I like to micromanage timings when we are fixing a sleep problem. So this family may not have a sleep problem, but if you do, there is a big difference between a 6:30 up and a 7:30 up. It's you have to rejig your days every day depending on what has happened. And when we are fixing a problem, so much is about the process of elimination of what could be causing what. And so to have a fluctuating uptime, you start the guesswork before the day's even begun. So that's why I like a consistent uptime of 7, or if you're working an 8 till 8, a consistent uptime of 8. Kirsten, I thought the 2-hour wake window before bed was crazy when I first saw it. Yes, you are not alone, but can attest it was the best advice I saw when my baby was on 3 naps. Absolutely. And I get why it feels crazy. And I get why families are wanting bigger wake windows because the idea is the longer it is, the more sleep drive there is, et cetera, et cetera. It so often backfires. It may even be that it improves your bedtime because baby's just passing out from sheer exhaustion, but the issues will crop up overnight and with early rising. So I get why it feels crazy. I totally understand. And I'm always happy to explain because once it makes sense, it makes sense. My 5-month-old goes to bed at 7:30 to 8 p.m. and wakes an hour later. I try to resettle, but she won't unless she's on the boob, even though she had a feed half an hour before bed. So this is where you need to be able to feel confident that your baby is not waking from genuine hunger. So need to look at where your breastfeeds are placed throughout the day, and then make sure that they are full and complete. At 5 months old, maybe you have one small meal of solids. At 11:30, for example, getting on the schedule, but also the schedule needs to also give you confidence that they're not waking that hour later due to overtiredness or undertiredness. So once you're there, then you need to resettle until they go back to sleep. Because if you know that your feeds have been great, including that 30 minutes before bed, if you know that your schedule is great, if you know that the environment is on point, then your only job is to resettle consistently. Sometimes what can happen is that a baby will develop a ritual that the longer and harder they cry, the more likely they are to get fed. And so that becomes the pattern each night. And so it's all about the day work to get you to confidently resettle that wake up. Oh, the 8-month-old in with the 3.5-year-old is waking up through the night. When you say uptime, do you mean we settle until then? Yes, you would settle until then. Sometimes what I do if there's some sleep work needing to be done, I would move the toddler into your room for a few nights, sleep train, fix the sleep issues for your 8-month-old, and then move your 3.5-year-old back in if they don't have space to be in their own rooms, which is absolutely fine. Great question. Do I transition from 3 to 2 naps when Bub turns 8 months or when she refuses nap 3? This is when she refuses nap 3. So the idea for me, the main thing I'm looking for is that when nap 2 finishes at 2 or 2:15 and come 5:30, baby is still absolutely outright refusing nap 3 and they're somewhere between 8 and 9 months, then that's when I would say it's time to drop the nap, because then it's not about we've made the decision that because they've turned 8 months, we're gonna make this change. It's that they have been naturally been able to extend their wake window and their reserve for being awake for longer, and then it's a natural process, which means that it's a smoother transition. Even if there's still the odd hiccup, it is a smoother transition because it has been baby led. Um, so yes, it's when they refuse the third nap. Now, if you are struggling with the 3 to 2 nap drop, I have a mini guide which gives you month by month example schedules, which is where you're going to put your milk feeds, this is where you're going to put your solids, this is where you're going to put your naps, so that you can hold on to that third nap for as long as possible, and then where to move to after you've made the nap drop. I am often putting babies back onto 3 naps while we solve problems. So that guide exists because this is such a great and common question and scenario. What guide is that called? I need that. That is the 3 to 2 nap transition guide. Let me see if I can pop it in the chat there for you. I need my husband here to be the moderator. I'll who was it? Feel free to DM me and I'll send you the link. It should be in the link in my bio anyway. But feel free to DM me just to, oh, Cade, you're here. Cade, could you please put the link to my 3 to 2 nap transition guide into the chat, please and thank you. That's Mr. Sleep Concierge. How do I stop my son from waking at 5 a.m., but I know he will sleep more if he's fed? Early rising always has a root cause, and it's can be tricky to fix, but it's absolutely fixable. If you are happy to do a quick feed, and it's also age dependent, if you're happy to do the world's quickest sip and then back down, no problem if that works for you. But we need to rule out genuine hunger. We need to rule out, is he waking due to being cold? Is he waking up because of habit? It ends so many baby sleep problems start because of something else and then become habitual. So he's 5 months old and I follow all wake windows and temp issues. So I want to know where your feeds are placed as well to make sure that it's not hunger. So, and also where your other overnight feeds, if there are any. If you're down to just a quick 5 a.m., it's got to be the world's smallest feed, because with the way that I work, 7 a.m. is where we anchor in the first full feed of the day. So often, if a baby has taken a full feed at 5, understandably, come 7 a.m., they're not hungry because they've just had this full feed, and then you're kind of starting on the back foot. So one of the golden rules of overnight weaning is that the closer that early morning feed gets to 7 a.m., the smaller it needs to be. But in order to know what's going on, I need to see the lay of the land. He feeds every 3 hours, 7 a.m. start, anchor day, and always sleeps 30-minute cat naps. So let me just go back. He's 5 months old. I would look to, and this is just me shooting from the hip, I would be going to 4 hourly full feeds, and to really tank up. Maybe you even have 1 meal of solids, just a few teaspoons starting, depending on whether or not you're up to that at 5 months, and having a look at where your overnight feeds are so that we can time it, or doesn't feed any other time overnight. Great. So you might just want to do a quick sip and back down, or you resettle until 7 a.m. But before you do that, I would probably see if we can do a bit of a switcheroo to really tank up the feeds during the day. Maddie, you've asked a question. I wonder if I've missed the first. Oh, sorry. Yes. The 5-month-old. She feeds roughly 9 times a day, generally gets 3 to 4 hours of sleep, and we build sleep pressure up before. 9 times a day often ends up meaning that a baby is constantly topping up. And maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but 9 times a day, if we're talking about during the awake time, like 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., or are we talking in a 24 hours? At 5 months old, I usually move to 4 hourly full feeds during the day. So there would be 4 during the day and maybe 2 overnight. But to each their own. That's just how I usually roll. Because one of the reasons is that when they take lots of little snack feedings, they can be hardwired to, yes, from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. Yeah. So if they're feeding 9 times during the day, then they're feeding very frequently, which means that they can be hardwired to need to feed frequently. So it could be that baby's waking 1 hour into the night in order to finish the feed, or just because she's used to feeding frequently. So in order to, again, be confident that that's not what's happening, I focus on full feeds. Cade, in Instagram chat, Stacey Lou has asked for the 3 to 2 nap guide link as well, please. Stacey Lou, if you don't get it, can you please DM me and I'll send you it's now in the link in bio, Mr. Sleep Concierge. Thank you very much. Ask and you shall receive. So it's up in the link in bio. The thing then to listen to that will complement the 3 to 2 nap guide is the Don't Drop That Nap podcast episode of Nap Trapped as well. They go hand in hand beautifully. Maddie, a big part of the way that I work, and I think so many people think sleep consultants focus on sleep training and just baby sleep and schedules, and whilst that's a big part of it, it's actually so much to do with calorie redistribution. It's a huge part of the way that I work, and I think the results that people get before we've even started any sleep training, purely because we've redistributed calories and a baby is so satiated and taking these full feeds. And if you think about the mantra of we want them to tank up, not top up, the power of that is incredible before we even get to sleep training. So it could be that you can organically fix the hour waking into the night purely from feeds. And I hear it from families time and time and time again that when we move onto space feedings as part of the strategy, things get better before we've even actively worked on them. It's just a huge part of the way that I work. All right, I'm going to answer one last question. All right, Erica, I'm going to answer your question as my final one. Baby takes cat nap around 4:45 till 5:30, usually 30 to 45 minutes, and still sometimes seems overtired by 7:30 bedtime. She's 6.5 months old. I I think you've got the right idea with keeping it to a 2-hour wake window. I'd probably need to know more. Have you got multiple overnight? Sorry if you've already. Oh, no, I don't think you've asked anything previously. Sometimes I need to know more because overtiredness compounds. It's not just about the last wake window. If it can be sort of a spiral and a cycle that babies get a bit stuck in. So if there's multiple overnight wakings, if there's really short naps and long wake windows the rest of the day, then yes, by bedtime, it's all sort of compounded despite that last nap and last wake window being age appropriate. So it's about looking at the whole 24-hour picture. We would just need to figure out what's going on. It also might just be that she's just very ready for sleep, at which point, fantastic. But the overtiredness can often mean that there's big tears, that there's battles with sleep, and you get overnight waking. So let me know if you think it's a cycle or if it's just purely she's looking really tired at bedtime. And I'll just follow up on Maddie. She's 4 months corrected. Should that change anything? No. So even at 4 months, I'll often move to 4 hourly feeds for an otherwise healthy, thriving, eating, drinking baby. It still would be about calorie distribution, but again, the difference would be maybe we give it. Yeah, I'd need to know more, but this is a perfect example for a consultation so that we can. I can. There's nuance for each family as to where these feeds. Why we do these feeds in the way that we do and where we pop them in overnight, if at all, to help meet your sleep goal and fix that problem. And Erica, lately she's waking up around 9:45. I do resettling throughout the night. Yeah, I would just want to know what the rest of your day looks like. I usually do that last cat nap at 6.5 months at 4:45 till 5:15 and a 7:15 bed. Not that that's a huge difference, but it means that I want to know what's the day the day leading up to that nap. Stacey Lou, Sally, will you be doing more regular lives? I will share with my mother's group. It's very helpful. I'm so glad you found them helpful. I've actually really, really enjoyed doing them. I find them a lot of fun. I think these questions are fantastic. I can clearly talk about baby sleep. I think, yes, I plan to do. I've done one every day this week just for a fun little challenge. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, because I would be just talking to myself, which I can also do if none of you jumped on and asked these great questions. So, yes, I will be doing more regular lives. Stacey, what I might do is figure out a bit of a schedule and then share it. And then hang on, sorry, I just saw a message. Okay. And then you and your mother's group will know. Maybe I'll try and lock them in a little bit more regular. Sorry, I'm clearly bad at doing multiple things at one time, answering the question and seeing a gazillion more come through on 3 different screens. Erica, I think where to start is I would actually go and jump into Snooze Social, which is my baby sleep membership. It's only $7 a month. And Beck, who's my podcast co-host, her and I are in there moderating and doing schedule reviews. So that way it won't be split up between these comments. Jump in there and we can do a schedule review. You also get access to discounted consults in there as well. So feel free then, if you need to add one on, you can while you're in there. All right. On that note, I'm going to log off. Feel free to reach out in my DMs if you're wondering which guide, course, consult you're after, and I can direct you. There is so much support out there, and I will let you know when I will be next on live next week and what time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. This was so much fun, and Happy snoozing. All right, now I got to figure out how to end stream. All right, bye everyone. Bye.